Hey, this is Eddie Muller, and I am back with my colleague Ann Hockens, Director of Communications for the Film Noir Foundation. We kind of ran long last time, so we're doing another one of these Ask Eddie installments earlier than usual so that we can get through all of the questions that we didn't get to last time. So, Ann, how are you doing since the last time we spoke?
Really well. I've been enjoying the clear air.
Yes,
It's been wonderful.
yes, indeed.
Really
Yes,
nice.
indeed.
So that's been great.
Yeah, it's been a much better week than when we last spoke. I am two things I want to say before we get underway with the questions. Number one is as you know, the last time that we spoke, that I think it was that very day, I sort of withdrew from social media.
Yes.
You may be aware of this.
That.
Yeah. I kind of posted a thing saying it's been fun, but I'm out of here. And I have to say that it's been great, but for a different reason. And this was this just happened today. So this was very powerful for me. When I left Facebook, I left a post on Facebook and on Twitter saying if you wanted to get a hold of me, you could write me a letter.
Yeah.
Because I now really, in support of the U.S. Postal Service, I took a post office box. That is P.O. Box 6153, Alameda, California, 94501. And you know, because I invite people to reach me that way because it was kind of an experiment,
Yeah.
in a sense. And I got to tell you, I went to the post office box today for the first time, and it was overflowing.
Oh, wow.
And it was wonderful. And to me, it had a very, very special significance because I knew that when people took the time to write and handwrite or type a letter, they would be much more heartfelt and more interesting than what you get on social media, which is a lot of, I mean, there's some really nice things on social media, but there's also a lot of weird knee-jerk, I don't know what this actually means kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really delightful to see people take the time to write really wonderful things. A lot of hellos to you as well in these missives. Nice. But the thing that really got me was when my dad died, and you know, my dad was a very well-known sports writer in San Francisco. I kept all of his correspondence, and I have boxes. I'm looking right now at like 5 bankers boxes stacked up over here, filled with letters that were written to him.
Yeah.
And what I loved about all these letters is that was back in the day, and they were all addressed to Eddie Muller, Mr. Boxing, SF Examiner, the city. That was it. That was the total address on the envelopes. SF Examiner, the city. And they all got to him.
Yeah.
I had no extended zip codes or anything like that. And just opening a P.O. box and getting these lovely letters, actually you could hold in your hand, really reminded me of that, and honestly made me feel like a little bit like it must have felt when my old man got all this stuff routinely in the mail. It was a very, very nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. And I also today I got everything done. The people had asked about the new version of my Dark City book, and I'm just thrilled to say that the whole thing is now off to the publisher. The manuscript, photographs, photo captions, everything. And so I'm feeling pretty good tonight. So let's go. I'm ready.
Big accomplishment.
I'm ready to go. That was a big accomplishment, and I'm very, very excited about seeing this book in its new form. Okay.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people that were very interested in that, so it will be good news for people.
Yes, I'm happy to report that is on the fast track now.
Okay, so the first question is from Michael. I read on IMDb trivia that Anthony Mann met up with John Alton in Switzerland while Mann was working on A Dandy in Aspic to discuss a potential project together. However, Mann died before the meeting ever took place. Do you know anything about the project Mann had in mind?
I will know more. I know that Alton was fired, I believe, off the Birdman of Alcatraz, and they did meet, but they were not actually going to make a project together. I know that Anthony Mann, at the time he died, had a couple of projects in the works, one of which, bizarrely, was a movie about the Donner Party. Yeah, which would have been pretty weird.
Yeah.
But that never got done. And as I'm racking my brain, there was another project he was developing as well. But as far as I know, their meeting was not to discuss the potential of working together again. Sorry to say, but at that point, I think Alton was a little, I don't know if he was that, I don't want to say he wasn't employable, but because he had burned some bridges, I don't think he was, I think it was just a friend thing. It wasn't a professional thing when they got together.
And this one's from Sean Moore. Would you consider Son of Dracula to be film noir or horror noir, and why not?
I know in our Noir City magazine, Steve Cronenberg wrote a really cool piece about Son of Dracula and asking this same question. I mean, I would say no, but I totally understand the vibe. I mean, it's very much like, you know, it's funny. It's like the Val Lewton pictures, which I do consider the ones that aren't zombie pictures, you know.
Yeah.
Like The Seventh Victim, which I will be showing soon on Noir Alley. I definitely consider that to be a noir. It's just funny how these things get typed, you know, because it says Dracula in the title. There's no way that a lot of people are going to ever consider this to be a film noir. There's some ambivalence in it about the actual, you know, horror vampire aspect of the movie, but I mean, I don't really consider it a noir, but I get why people ask that question. So my answer is no. Just like when people say, do you consider the Batman movies or something to be film noir, I have to say no, because I just don't believe in film noir people put on latex costumes to fight crime. You know, I get the noir influence on it, but I don't think of it as noir itself.
Yeah, because I felt like Son of Dracula felt more like Southern Gothic to me.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of the Red House. Has a real similar feel to it.
Yeah.
And then also, because you mentioned Val Lewton zombie films, I Walked with the Zombie, which is one of my all-time favorite films. It's really just an adaptation of Jane Eyre. I mean, it's, you know, it's Jane Eyre with zombies. Before that was like a, you know, a meta modern thing they're doing now.
I mean, look, you could make a fortune in Hollywood with that idea today. Jane Eyre with zombies. You know,
exactly.
Anything. You know, it's Great Gatsby with zombies.
That's a strange idea. Okay, this is from Lori. I remember when I was a little girl that the MFTV, the movie of the week television things they used to do, the version of Laura starred a real life princess, Lee Radswell.
Yeah.
Decades later, it's kind of like, excuse me, Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster. I've heard rumors but can't confirm any sightings. So what happened to it? Why isn't it available?
I'm sure there are some weird rights issues involved. Now, that whole project was conceived and done just for Lee Radswell, you know, of the Jackie Kennedy family. But the weirdest thing, I did a commentary. I didn't know anything about that film either. And I believe the teleplay was written by Truman Capote. So he did the adaptation of Vera Caspere's novel. And I'm trying to remember who else was in it, but I'm going to tell you one of the people who was in it, because I did an audio commentary in New York with Farley Granger for They Live by Night. And we went out to lunch afterwards, and over lunch, he mentioned this to me, and that was the first time I'd heard anything about it. And it was like, how did we know each other for like 6 months and do an audio commentary and everything? And then over lunch, you're just telling me, oh, you know, I played Shelby Carpenter in an adaptation of Laura on television with Lee Raswell. And I'm like, wow, this is astounding. I'm embarrassed to say, Anne, I still have not seen it. So I don't know if it's available. I don't know if it's been pulled from circulation. It was in some respects kind of a vanity project for her.
Okay.
So it's entirely possible that she owned it and retained the rights to it and decided to withdraw it from circulation for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure. I am going to look into that though and see what the deal is, because that's some pretty fascinating people involved in that production.
Yeah, and you know, I've heard about it, but I've just never seen it either. It's just one of those things. This is from Robert. Is Lady Macbeth the first noir villainess? I can't believe the evil that comes out of her mouth.
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, there's so much, you know, the first anything is impossible to say.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, Macbeth certainly has enough noir elements in it. It's a lot of the Shakespearean stuff does, really. I mean, you could do a lot worse than adapting most of his plays as noir. What was the other one? The recent one? You know, Dennis Lehane's Mystic River. Laura Linney plays kind of a Lady Macbeth character in that, you know. So that character pops up quite often in noir. Whether Lady Macbeth was the first one, who knows? Who knows, Macduff?
I have a cat chewing on my laptop. Just give me 1 second.
Now people are getting your close-up. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Emily, okay, be a good girl. What film noir or films noir or film noirs do you think speak most directly to our times? And that's from Suzanne.
Oh, brother. That's a tough question, but they were trying to warn us, you know. So you know, not all of them, but the politically charged noirs. It is amazing. In the last few years, since, shall we say, 2016, when I was showing films at the festivals, it was amazing how much stuff popped out of these movies that felt incredibly timely. The warnings that were given. I mean, obviously, the one I'm going to cite is Force of Evil, Abraham Polanski's Force of Evil, which was basically saying that the entire capitalist system is open to such corruption because it operates along the same lines as organized crime. And, you know, without eternal vigilance, it's just going to turn crooked eventually. That's what's going to happen. I think we're seeing evidence of that now. And then I showed The Turning Point, which was a great find, and I'm so happy that Paramount made a new 4K digital restoration of The Turning Point. I hope it comes out at some point in some form. But that's a whole thing about, you know, part of that whole expose period in the 50s where every studio was based on the congressional hearings into organized crime. All the studios were making these movies that were about, oh, there's going to be Senate hearings on corruption in our city and blah, blah, blah. And there's a point in that film where Edmund O'Brien, I think, who's the crusading DA trying to root out the criminals, is explaining why it's so important to go after these guys. And he says, because, you know, first it's the bookie joints, then it's City Hall, then it's the State House. Where does it stop? The Capitol, the nation's capital. And the whole audience just erupted at that moment because it was quite the moment, you know. And that was a movie from 1952. And you know, I'm sure people in 1952 felt like, wow, that's a reach.
Yeah.
But here we are.
So yeah, that's cheerful. This is from Jan. There's music in Murder by Contract that sounds like the music from the Beverly Hillbillies TV show. It would be played when they would be showing The Mansion. Same music? If so, is there a name? Great movie.
Yes, it's funny. I've gotten a lot of responses to that. After I showed that on TCM, it's funny. One of the letters that I got asked that very question. Yes, it is the same, with a slight variation because it's the same composer, Perry Botkin. Perry Botkin Sr. is the guy who wrote the music for Murder by Contract, and he was a tremendous guitar player, session guitar player. He was like one of the mainstays of the Bing Crosby Orchestra. And later on in his career, he wrote themes for early television shows. And then his son, Perry Botkin Jr., followed in his footsteps and wrote the theme for, I think it was The Young and the Restless. I think the soap opera, which became a big hit when they put the music over Nadia Comaneci's gymnastics routines, and it became known as Nadia's theme. That's the son of the guy who wrote the score for Murder by Contract, who did write the music for the Beverly Hillbillies. So there you have it.
These people are sharp.
These people are sharp. They got good ears, man.
Okay, and this is from Fabio. Much has been said about the visual signature of noir. I wonder if you could please talk about some signature patterns of narrative structure in noir. I think of the unpacking of the past in Sodmac movies like The Killers and a series of flashbacks as a quintessential noir thing. Which others can you tell us about?
That's interesting. That's definitely true. I think the unpacking of the past, that's a very nice turn of phrase. And yes, I would say most classic noirs that we know and love, like Double Indemnity, Out of the Past, you know, there's a whole host of them that are told Mildred Pierce, you know, told in flashback, like where was it that I made my mistake? Where did it all go wrong? You know, those are pretty classic. I think we've previously discussed another feature of noir that I am particularly fond of, which is the unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Because so much of noir is narrated and has that internal monologue, which is an important part of noir because the stories in noir tend to be single person narratives, not multi-character pieces. That's one of the things that to me always separates a noir. Noir does not have a big cast of characters, you know. Robert Altman wasn't going to direct too many noir films besides The Long Goodbye notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But so they have these internal monologues, but what if you can't trust what the narrator is telling you? What if the narrator's a liar? And that's an important thing as well in noir. It's funny. I'm reading this book right now, which is really good, called The Big Goodbye, which is about the making of Chinatown.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating how I learned that Robert Towne, when he was writing the first drafts of Chinatown, didn't really conceive of it in classic noir fashion, noir detective fashion, because the whole story wasn't seen through the eyes of the detective. He had a much broader cast of characters, and there were scenes in the original version of Chinatown that Jake Gittes wasn't in.
Yeah.
And it was Roman Polanski who came, when he came in the process, who said to Town, you know, there can't be, the audience can't see anything that Jake doesn't see.
Yeah.
He has to be the avatar. He has to lead the audience through the whole thing. And it was really Polanski that kind of dictated that it be closer to the classic style of detective fiction, but also noir, in which you're following in the footsteps of one character. And, you know, in a great noir story, that it's generally leading them to catastrophe.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's about as good as I'm going to do on this question right now. There might be a few other avenues to explore, but I mean, I can't remember the name of the person who asked this question, but they see it clearly by talking about that unpacking of the past, which also applies to what I'm talking about with Chinatown, which is the past figures so prominently in the story that's unfolding in Chinatown.
Yeah.
But how is it revealed? And it's interesting because in the old films, they reveal it through flashbacks, but in Chinatown, they very brilliantly just parcel it out in the present by how that information is revealed, like what actually happened that led to the case that Gittes is working on now. And it's fascinating that Polanski threw out everything that had different time frames and too many characters. He said, follow the detective, just follow the detective.
And it's yeah, and I like that because you wind up really identifying and feeling like you have it feels much more natural.
Because he thinks, as John Huston says in the film, you may think you know what you're dealing with, but believe me, you don't.
Yeah.
And that's what that is all about. And that was how that whole film was structured, was how Gittes loses his cockiness and his arrogance because he doesn't realize the extent of the evil that he's up against. And how that is slowly revealed in the course of the movie is what makes that film so brilliant, in my estimation.
Okay, so this one is from Phil. Are there other groups like the Film Noir Foundation for other movie genres, westerns, musicals, documentaries, monsters, porn? I don't know if there are, how to reach them.
Well, I'm sure you can find the porn group very easily online. I don't think you're going to have to try very hard to find that. That's, you know, everything starts with porn. The videotape business started with pornography, and the internet lives on pornography.
That's also how you could always tell which media it was going to go to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They stopped putting stuff on. It's always the first to move to whatever's actually going to work next.
Absolutely, it's the bellwether. Pornography is the bellwether of all technology. It's people think I'm joking, but I'm not.
No, I was in the video store industry for years through many different formats.
Yeah. So you know, but this is an interesting question, and it's one that I have asked myself many times. I know there is a group for 3D movies. There's a group in LA. I'm embarrassed to say I can't think of it right now, but they do a great job just maintaining interest in classic 3D films and things. But you know, honestly, other than like conventions, I don't know of other groups that are dedicated to the preservation of the films.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why there isn't a Western foundation or a musical foundation or a screwball comedy. I mean, there's the Silent Film Festival, obviously.
I was going to bring them up.
Yeah, which, you know, and they are not alone in, you know, their attempts to you know, they're doing exactly what we do. It's like educating, preserving, exhibiting. You know, we hope they'll exhibit in theaters again one of these days. But I invite anybody who's listening who loves Westerns or comedies or anything as much as you love noir. I didn't have any background in this when I started. So it can be done, you know, you just have to have a passion for it. And, you know, that's it. It can be done.
Yeah, and I think just one thing I wanted to say about the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, there's a really important thing that they do is they also, in terms of exhibiting the films, they also always have live music.
Yes.
And so you really get the experience of seeing a silent film in a theater with live music, which is a very different experience. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, you were there when they screened Napoleon at the Paramount.
Oh yeah,
and
greatest experience I ever had in a movie theater.
Me too. It was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job, and it's kind of it's doubly sad how the pandemic has affected them because of that live aspect of the film presentations, that the orchestra is there, the Mont Alto Orchestra is there, or the Matty Bai Orchestra is there, or Donald Sosin is there playing, or Stephen Horn.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, some of Stephen's accompaniment to silent films have also been among the most thrilling things I've ever witnessed in a movie theater. And, you know, I just, you know, it'll come back. It will come back. But not soon enough, apparently. I just, you know, fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially too, because people probably don't know this, but they literally have people come from overseas to play at that festival, and everything is matched really well to the strengths of the people that come to play to what they're showing. And that is a huge amount of things to coordinate, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible. So I know, hopefully next year, who knows, but I really missed it this year so much.
Yes, I know. And you know, Anita, who's the creative director there, is, you know, is part of the Film Noir Foundation as well. And I'm on the board of the Silent Film Festival. But, you know, Noir City has it much easier because by and large, you know, I'm the live aspect of the show. You know, I'll come out and introduce the movies, or we'll have, you know, like Annabelle or Victoria Mature, who was there last year, will help me introduce the movies, and I luck out because a number of the women who participate as Ms. Noir City, you know, and adorn the posters are very talented people who sing and provide bonus entertainment as part of the show. But it's nothing compared to what the Silent Festival does, bringing in whole orchestras, as you say, from overseas many times, and you know, having to put them up and pay their airfare and all this stuff. So yeah, it was quite a challenge. Anyway, we love them, and that was you know, also a lot of passion went into creating that festival, and Steve Salmon and you know, it can, like I say, it can be done. So if there's somebody out there listening who, you can do it. If you have a passion for it, it can be done.
Okay, so this is from Gordon Kitt, the Kitt Noir Film Festival at Columbia University.
Yes, yes.
Discuss why so many film noirs have scenes in amusement parks, as evidenced by Woman on the Run, Lady from Shanghai, The Third Man, Ride the Pink Horse, The Sniper, Quicksand.
You're forgetting Strangers on a Train.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one too. Because it's great. It's a great locale.
And there's also Gun Crazy as a carnival. That's where Bart and Laurie meet in Gun Crazy. And Nightmare Alley is the whole beginning of the film is in a carnival. If not an amusement park, it's a carnival.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it just makes for exciting backdrop for things. But I also think one thing that all those films have in common, less so The Lady from Shanghai, where it was built around the fact that it's empty, and it got creep value out of the fact that the funhouse was empty, is that the amusement parks are so bustling and so full of activity that the thing that the movie is about can transpire without anyone knowing it's happening.
Yeah.
Right? Like in Woman on the Run, this whole murder plot is happening, and there's excitement and suspense in the fact that nobody is aware that there's this life and death situation that's unfolding. You know, it's like when Bruno kills Miriam Haynes. Is that Miriam? I think kills her. You know, outside the tunnel of love, and nobody notices.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's part of what makes that backdrop so interesting. In Nightmare Alley, obviously, it was the whole theme of the movie. It's like how you sucker people. You know, it's like getting over on the rubes in the audience. But I do think that is a big part of the appeal. You know, and of course, if there's a roller coaster in it, which makes me think of another film that Gordon didn't mention, which is Man in the Dark, which was a 3D noir with Edmund O'Brien that ends in an amusement park in 3D. That's obvious why they set it in an amusement park, because it was in 3D. But you know, I think that's pretty much it. The idea that you can be alone in doing something secretive in a place that's just completely noisy and filled with activity.
Yeah, and I think too, like, because as you were talking about that, my mind went back to Gun Crazy, and it is sort of amazing that these two people are meeting. There's all these people around, and it's just this incendiary meeting, and everything is, you know, and it happens, you know, in that interest of when two people like find each other, and it's just against that backdrop of just everybody like having a good time, and these people are, you know, are finding their destiny, which is
and let's put it bluntly, Anne, in regards to that movie, it's like they're having sex in public.
It is.
That's exactly what that scene is. I mean,
oh my God.
It's like this is a public thing, and they're oblivious to everybody around them.
Yeah.
And it's like they're having sex in public. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Sean Moore. Oh, I really liked this question.
Okay.
Had Laird Krieger not passed away at such a young age, would Raymond Burr's film career have been as great?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate what is implied in the question. It is impossible, of course, to say one way or the other. I would even tweak the question a little bit, because we'll recall that Laird Krieger's last film was Hangover Square, where he lost a lot of weight to play that role, and he was no longer the heavy, right? And we all know that Raymond Burr's, the roles that made him in Noir, you know, Pitfall and Raw Deal and those things, he was big. He was Laird Krieger big, the way he was in The Lodger and I Wake Up Screaming and that stuff. But the person who I think maybe most benefited from Laird Krieger's passing was Vincent Price, because I think there's a lot of similarity, and they were both at Fox. Vincent Price and Laird Krieger were both at Fox, and I think as soon as Laird Krieger was gone, because Vincent Price kind of rose to prominence in like 44. He had that great supporting role in Laura.
Yeah.
And Krieger was making Hangover Square, and then it came out in 45, but he was dead before the movie was even released.
Yeah.
And then, I think if Krieger had lived, he might have gotten a lot of the parts that Vincent Price got at Fox in the 1940s. So,
yeah.
And I say that just because knowing how the studio system worked, if you were at the same studio, you were really fighting for the same roles. Raymond Burr was off freelancing for most of that time, so he could have worked anywhere. So it wasn't like he was competing for the parts that Krieger was going to get, but Vincent Price was.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting question.
Yeah. Interesting answer. I'm a huge Vincent Price fan, so as soon as you said that, like, I could totally see it.
Yeah, because they had that kind of really that smooth but sinister thing. I mean, before Price became, the horror guy, he was playing those you could easily see Vincent Price playing the roles that Laird Krieger had in, like, This Gun for Hire. You could easily see him playing that part.
And the oh God, what's it called?
Tell me.
It's not Vicky.
I wake up screaming.
I wake up screaming.
Yeah.
He would have been great in that role.
Yeah, of course.
Being, okay. So I've got 3 questions from Joseph Ferguson.
Okay.
The first one is, in Bullet, a noir-like film, surely, I have never understood why the crook paid to be someone else and stashed in the hotel room by the Robert Vaughn character unlocks the door, which allows his killer unhindered entry.
Yeah. Yes. Joe, you know the answer to this, Joe. Come on. There's no movie if he doesn't open the door. Yeah. That's number 1 answer. I like to think he just ordered a pizza. He couldn't help himself. There was a favorite pizza place in town, and he thought he was getting the pizza delivery. I mean, it's a goofy hook for the plot, but I didn't lose sleep over it, Joe, and I suggest you don't either.
Is it really true that we never know or can figure out who kills the driver in The Big Sleep?
No, it's not true. It's just that the story is so complex that I think people just give up really trying to follow it, is more the thing. Now, my understanding of all of that is that it was Joe Brody who hit him on the head or something and put him in the car, and the guy was like semi-conscious. So it's never really revealed in the book or the movie whether that was a murder or an accident.
Yeah.
Because he drives the car off the pier, but you're led to believe it was because he was compromised from this altercation with Joe Brody, where he got hit on the head, and that's what caused him to drive off the pier. So, the truth is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And it may have just been manslaughter anyway.
It may have just been manslaughter anyway.
And then his third question is, what are your top 5 film noirs of all time?
Oh my God.
We're holding this to you. This is irrevocable.
Today. In a Lonely Place, Sunset Boulevard, Crisscross, Double Indemnity, and The Asphalt Jungle.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised Crisscross made that list.
You can and you can exchange it for Out of the Past anytime you want, because Out of the Past.
I love Crisscross.
Lurking right there,
No.
I forget what the question was, because did it say best or favorite?
Well, it said top 5 film noirs.
Top.
To me, that sounds like, it seems personal regardless, but.
Of course it is. It's all personal. It's all, and I don't want anybody to think, oh my God, he's dissing Out of the Past, or, because it's not. It's just a personal thing. See, I choose to put Sunset Boulevard on that list. A lot of people wouldn't even say it's a film noir, or In a Lonely Place.
Yeah.
But those have personal significance for me. So if you ask me my top 5, I'm going to give you my top 5.
Yeah.
Right. And there you go. Actually, the one that's interchangeable for me is Double Indemnity and Out of the Past. You can flip one of those, because to me, those are the 2 definitive noir films.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's it. I always say, and I probably said it on every single one of these that we've done, those are the gateway films. If you wanted, people say, I don't even know what film noir is. What is it? You show them either Double Indemnity or Out of the Past. That's the starter kit.
Because at one of my my day jobs, the one before the one I have now, I worked for a transportation planning firm. Anyway, they would have once a month, someone would give like a lunch speech, and I had given notice there, and they were like, would you do one on film noir? Because they all knew that I also worked for the Film Noir Foundation. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I did like put together this presentation, and when I was doing, I pulled so much because I was going through different tropes and stuff, and like it was double indemnity, double indemnity, double indemnity, and I showed them like a clip, and they were all like, oh my God. It's a great.
Oh, that reminds me, I have to say, when we did this last time, I'm embarrassed. I thought about this like 10 minutes after we got offline. There was a question about who I thought were the most successful European emigre directors, of those who came to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I said Fred Zinnemann was probably the most. I don't know why Billy Wilder completely slipped my mind in that conversation.
Oh, trust me. We had live comments of people saying, what about Billy Wilder? Everyone noticed.
I'm not surprised, but it just goes to show you that Billy Wilder, here's the difference. Never did I encounter in any of my research any difficulty that Billy Wilder had in adapting to Hollywood. He picked up American slang so fast that honestly, I sometimes forget that he's an Austrian. It just slips my mind completely. I always think like Otto Preminger, Fritz Lang, even Robert Siodmak, Edgar Ulmer, Curtis Bernhardt, Fred Zinnemann. These are the guys that I think of as that wave that came from UFA in Berlin, Well, Wilder was there too.
Yeah.
But because he made, such an incredibly phenomenal transition to America, and also as a writer, not just as a director. All those other guys were just directors. He was a writer.
Yeah.
And he wrote with such extraordinary sense of American vernacular speech that I sometimes forget. Because not only do I think Billy Wilder is the greatest of the European emigres, he's the greatest writer-director in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah.
In my estimation, right? There's nobody better. So I deserved any kind of barbs that people threw my way. Like, why isn't he saying Billy Wilder? Because I totally spaced it out.
No, they said it nicely.
I'm glad I had this opportunity to clear my name.
They'll take you seriously again now.
Okay, good.
I like this one too. John Noe. Here's a good one. What are the most cringeworthy moments from some of your favorite noirs? To start with, I'd go with the wolf whistle effect in DOA.
Yeah, that is pretty stupid. Oh man, that is a good question. Cringe-worthy moments. Well, I'll tell you one for me, because it's a personal favorite film, and I go, ugh, is in the roadhouse at the end of Thieves Highway, when the cops come in, when Richard Conte is beating Lee J. Cobb to a pulp. Behind the cops come in and they give the square up, like, we'll take it from here. Young man, don't ever try to take the law into your own hands, and blah, blah, blah. And there's this, it's just a horrible shot of this cop that is clearly an insert that made me even doubt that Jules Dassin shot this insert. Like they said, we got to put it in. Julie's not going to shoot it. So let's just do this one mismatched close up and cut it in of this cop giving the moral lecture to Richard Conte. That's a cringe-worthy moment for me, because it's in a film that otherwise I adore. I just think it's a masterpiece. I'm sure there are many others, but it's also interesting because I tend to cringe at poor artistic decisions more than I cringe at stuff that is what we now consider politically incorrect.
Yeah.
Because I know that, they should have known better, but they didn't, because that was just the cultural norm at the time. So I'm cringing because, like, I'm cringing for all of us, for the culture as a whole, rather than just cringing for the filmmaker who's like, I can't believe you left that in your movie. Like John says, the wolf whistle and DOA. It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
You're going out you're going out with that in the final cut. Okay. Makes me really wonder.
No, and it's also amazing too when you think about the whole process of how a film is made, and sort of every eye that those things pass through before you actually release it, which you can still see. And it's like, no one thought maybe.
Well, it's also funny because DOA is a I'm not going to say it's a problematic film for me.
Yeah.
But it's so much of it is so over the top.
Yeah.
That it does have a cartoony element as far as I'm concerned. And so after the wolf whistle, I'm kind of wondering why they didn't add like other sound effects, because you definitely could have had sound effects for Edmund O'Brien when he's like running and sliding down hallways and into doors and stuff. And they could have just pumped all of that up, like, boom, you could have had all the cartoon sound effects in that one.
Yeah, he's pretty overwrought.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, you would be too if you knew you only had 48 hours to live, but
yeah.
No, there you go.
Yeah, no, it's actually, okay, so I'm telling you about not my current day job, but my last one. It was so funny because someone came up to me and she said, we need to have another notary in the office. Would you consider, becoming a notary? And I laughed and I said, oh my God, I don't know. I don't want to get killed for something like in DOA, spoiler. And she was like, oh, I saw that movie, the one with Dennis Quaid. And I'm like, no. Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, I know. It's you can't react harshly to those people. You just tell them that there's an even better version that you should see from 1950, and then when they say, "Oh, I don't watch black and white movies," then you get harsh with them.
No, she was totally intrigued, actually.
Good. Good.
This one is from Maureen. I would like to know why the film noir Rogue Cop is never shown. It has been many years since I saw this film and it stuck with me. You know, it's I don't know if I can read the whole thing, but it's the one with Robert Taylor.
Yes, I know the film well. I didn't realize when we showed that film 20 years ago at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood with Janet Leigh was our guest that night, because she's in the film. We showed Act of Violence and Rogue Cop, and Janet Leigh came out and talked about both of them. That I think that was the last public screening of that movie. And the answer to that question, Maureen, has everything to do with the underlying rights issue that I have talked about so many times, in fact, that I am going to do one of these Zoom conversations for the Film Noir Foundation with my buddy George Feltenstein at Warner Brothers, who's the head of the home entertainment division at Warner Brothers, because George is more knowledgeable about that subject than anybody in the world, I think. And Warner Brothers does control that title. It was an MGM movie, but Warner Brothers has that part of the MGM library now. And they cannot show it because they cannot clear the underlying literary rights on the movie, which is problematic. It's a very, very complicated legal issue that is involved here. It has to do with copyright renewal. It has to do with movies that are based on a literary source, and that copyright has to be renewed as well. And in many cases, the heirs, the estate or the heirs of that writer cannot be located. And if they cannot make that deal, they will just let the film sit rather than risk putting it out without having the underlying literary rights renewed. And because they're afraid that then an heir will pop up and say, you violated my the terms of the agreement or whatever, and they'll sue. And since lawyers run everything, they don't want lawsuits, right? But that is the reason for that. But yet, it's the same literary estate that The Big Heat comes from, because it's a William McGivern novel. It's The Big Heat and Odds Against Tomorrow and Shield for Murder and Hell on Frisco Bay. All these movies are from the same source literary estate, but for some reason, Rogue Cop can't get cleared, and it's a shame. It's a shame. Yeah, it's a good movie. Robert Taylor and Steve Forrest and Janet Leigh, Anne Francis, George Raft is in it. George Raft plays the villain. It's a good role for George Raft, and he is good in it. Yeah. And if I'm saying George Raft is good, that's saying something, Okay.
I always enjoy George Raft. Personally.
So do I. I just am not embarrassed to say that George Raft is not a very good actor. He's a movie star. I totally get his thing and his charisma and everything. But, that man is limited in what he can do on screen. And that's nothing to be embarrassed about, I mean, he had a phenomenal career because he had this star power and this charisma,
Yeah, and he did manage, like, a Red Light, I think is also, that's one of my favorite performances of his.
Yeah, he's very, he does what is necessary to make it work. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so yes, this is our last question.
Okay.
This is from Dave Grady. A lighthearted question for Eddie. By the way, I love the Q&As and hope you keep them going regularly. You're about to get your butt kicked in a barroom brawl. You can pick 3 classic noir tough guy actors to back you up. Who are you rolling with?
Okay, well, if I'm in a bar to start with, I got to pick my drinking companions. That's number one, right? Okay, so this is not that tough. Okay, I'm going with Robert Mitchum, number one, because there are legendary stories about Mitchum getting into a brawl with Primo Carnera at the Formosa Cafe in Hollywood, and
Really?
and like knocking him out, you know. So it's like, okay, I'm going with Mitchum. I'm going to go with. I'll probably go. It's too bad Alan isn't here to because he knows about when Mitchum and Charles McGraw worked together. Barroom brawls were fairly common. I think the entire police force was called out. So how can you not say Charles McGraw as one of those guys? I think he would be pretty good. Now, obviously, here's the wild card. A guy who knows his way around a barroom brawl is Lawrence Tierney, okay?
Yeah.
I would be a little hesitant because I don't think he'd stop when it's over. It's like he'd just keep fighting and then he'd turn on you and then he'd just smack you just on general principles once his blood was up. So that's why, yeah, he'd have my back at the start, but I'd be a little concerned about when he ran out of people to hit, he might just turn on you.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you'd get to see the you know, I'd hide and you'd get to see the Mitchum Tierney brawl.
Ooh, yeah. That would have been something.
Another guy that I'm going to throw in there is supposedly a legendary tough guy that didn't make a lot of noir, but I know the hardcore fans out there of tough guys know about William Smith. And William Smith, you know, who was on the old Laredo show with Neville Brand and Peter Brown, and he was a tough son of a gun.
Yeah, and
so,
big.
And big, yeah. So yeah, if you had those four guys in a bar, I think they just clear the bar out just walking in. If those four guys walked into a bar, that bar is doing no more business. They're drinking by themselves in the bar because everybody else is leaving. Good question, Dave. Good question.
Yeah. So here we are. We did it. We've gotten through all of our backlog and all of our current months, so we have a clean slate for October.
Okay, beautiful. Because I have seen that questions are already coming in.
Yes.
For October, I have noted that. So so that was good. I just thank you, Anne, for going the extra mile, because I know when we cut it off last week, we still had these questions to go. And I did not want people to be disappointed. I wanted to get all the questions in. So I'm glad we did that. And do we have a date for our next one?
No.
Okay.
We don't. I will have it soon. I should be scheduling it. So it will be up soon.
And I'm gonna before we sign off, I'm gonna ask you, what are your top 5 noir films?
Well, number 1 is definitely The Maltese Falcon. It's actually my favorite film of all time.
Okay.
Then Black Angel.
Okay.
Because I think it's just has such like a beautiful tragic love story to it, and it's probably my favorite Duryea performance. I love his performance so much in that movie, and I think it's also a real improvement over the original material, frankly, from the Woolrich story.
Sometimes screenwriters had their hands full adapting Woolrich, you know, because the premises are great.
Yeah.
And then you got to bring it in for a landing somehow, and it's not always easy with Woolrich.
Yeah, and I think Double Indemnity. I'm a massive Barbara Stanwyck fan, and I love her performance so much in it because, you know, that character really could have been fairly two-dimensional, and just her ability to really put some depth in there. And also, I just don't think any straight man could have resisted her frankly. You know, I mean, she was just like, I think she would have sucked anyone in. She's just so
Yes.
Barbara.
I get you. I am in total agreement on that score. And I don't get these guys who say, you know, she's not my idea of a femme fatale. She's not, quote unquote, hot enough. And they're like, these guys are stupid. It's just, that's just stupid. Because I guarantee you that if Barbara Stanwyck put it on you, you would be helpless. It's just a helpless thing. Right.
Yeah, and it's funny because that also comes up with Mary Astor's character in The Maltese Falcon. I mean, every single time I post something about The Maltese Falcon, someone says, oh, she isn't sexy. And it just is like...
Wrong.
Yeah. You know,
but it's not that... I frankly hate that. I hate that. It's a misogynistic, stupid
it is.
attitude. Because it's not just about sexy. That's not the character's raison d'etre, is to be, quote unquote, sexy. She's a character like all the other characters in the story, right? She's duplicitous. She wants what she wants. Mary Astor is not unattractive. Let's face it.
No.
But, you know, is she Ava Gardner? Or, you know, or Rita Hayworth in The Lady from Shanghai? No, but she's a very complex character and she plays it beautifully. You know, I have a hard time reading, I reread The Maltese Falcon at least once a year, and I have a hard time seeing anybody but Mary Astor in that part, you know?
Oh God, just her little nervous tics and the things she does to kind of indicate that when she's lying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a brilliant performance. I mean,
I agree. I totally agree. I think it's one of the great duplicitous. You know, sometimes I think just the word femme fatale is too easy. You know, it gets thrown around too easily. She is the duplicitous female in that film.
Yeah.
The way counterpoint to all the duplicitous men.
Yeah.
In the film, right? I mean, that's the role she plays, and you know, it's fantastic. Is Faye Dunaway? Because I'm reading this book. Is Faye Dunaway a femme fatale in Chinatown? Absolutely not. She's messing with our expectations because you think maybe she is.
Yeah.
But she really isn't, and that's another performance that I kind of liken to Mary Astor in The Maltese Falcon because she has a lot of the same, she does a lot of the same halting, hesitating delivery that Mary Astor does. And Faye Dunaway is freaking fantastic in Chinatown.
Yeah.
One of the great performances ever, I think.
And it's great to see Madeline Kahn parodies both of them in The Chief Detective.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite films. I guess so. I'm on the fourth one. So I'm gonna have to go with Mildred Pierce.
Okay.
I love Joan Crawford's performance in that film so much. She is one of my favorite actresses. I think she is grossly underrated, frankly. And I especially like the fact that she is essentially sort of the dupe character, the mark to her daughter's femme fatale, where she's destroying her life to give her daughter everything she wants, and the daughter is manipulating her, and that dynamic between them is just, you know, amazing. And just all the supporting characters in it are so great as well. You know, once again, you know, I think it was a really brilliant way to change and adapt the book from the book. It's another one where I really like it as an adaptation.
Same kind of thing. You know, it's like screenwriting. What we now know is screenwriting 101. Yeah. But back then they were creating it, you know, and Jerry Wald, the producer, definitely saw, you know, you have to prune away everything extraneous and stick to the through line, and Mildred and her relationship with Vita is the through line, in Mildred Pierce, and it's Mildred's story. And as you know in the book, I mean, the third act focuses way more on Veda than it does on Mildred. And as a film, that's just a mistake. It may even be a mistake as a novel, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, the book is good, but once you've seen the movie, it's like, wow, that was impressive, you know, the way they worked that all out. So, and stuck the murder in so that it would be noir.
Yeah, and of course the flashback structure.
Yeah, of course. Well, that goes back to that earlier question about the, you know, the tropes of noir and the storytelling elements like that. There's a classic case in point. You know, they stuck it in Mildred Pierce when it was not there in the novel, and it really, really worked.
Yeah.
Start with a murder. Yeah. You know, it was funny when I was writing my crime fiction, my editor, I said, well, don't you want to know what the second book is about? And she said, just promise me that there's a corpse within the first 3 pages and we'll be fine.
And that is good writing advice for any like aspiring writers. If you want to write crime fiction, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
And I guess for my 5th film, I would do On Dangerous Ground.
Okay.
God, I love that film so much. I just, you know, Robert Ryan's character is just like, he's so out of control in the beginning and such an intense anger problem.
A film about police brutality.
Yeah, and it's really brutal, and how alienated he is. And then, he's sent out, into the wilderness. So you have this complete contrast between that and the city. And then, of course, Ida Lupino's performance is so amazing, as she is in everything she's done. And then
you've got a good gallery of actresses in your selections. The guys are good too.
Yeah,
but you've like hit on all the great noir actresses. That's great.
Yeah, and I think too, for me, I'm a very, very big John Ford fan. So the first time I watched the film, then when like Olive Carey and Ford Bond show up, as the parents of the victim, it was like, oh my God, this is like the most perfect movie ever. It's like a noir, but those two are in it. And I do know that ending obviously was really not what Ray wanted, but I love the ending of the film. I do. I'm glad it was changed.
Yeah, well, film is a collaborative medium.
Yeah.
Again, not to harken on this too much, but that the opposite is true of Chinatown, where it was written and conceived to have an upbeat ending.
Yeah.
And then it was changed. And I guess that says everything there is to say about Hollywood in the 40s and 50s versus Hollywood in the 1970s.
Yeah.
That everybody stuck fast to, usually it's the writer saying, but I want it to be a downbeat ending. And all the executives say, no, it has to be upbeat. And with Chinatown, it was the opposite. Robert Towne wanted the upbeat ending. There has to be hope. And then Polanski said, no, there isn't any. And all the executives and everybody else sided with Polanski. Yeah. It's like, wow, that was a twist. That was totally unexpected.
But I think it's the story. And I think for me, especially, with what they, reveal about Faye Dunaway's character, which is just so dark. It's
the darkest thing.
Yeah.
It's the darkest thing.
Yeah. And so for me, if that had like a happy ending, I don't think that would have worked.
Well, it was a relatively happy ending. Yeah. I mean, in the original script, she kills her father.
Yeah.
And Gittes arranges for her daughter to escape out of the country. Yeah. Everybody still gets away with all the corruption and everything. Yeah. but Noah Cross dies
Yeah.
at the end of the original film, and no. So anyway,
Yeah.
on that note, that the bigger the criminal, the more they get away with.
Well, that's what I liked about it too, and especially with the crime of incest typically isn't punished. I mean, that's just also very true.
And I hope everybody watching this has seen Chinatown.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we just wrecked one of the greatest
thing.
movies of all time. We just totally wrecked it for them. Okay. Maybe we better stop before we spoil everything.
So what do you think about the end of Citizen Kane?
What do I think about the end of Citizen Kane? You mean that Rosebud was the... Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah,
really.
we should stop right there.
But we're gonna do this again, and I look forward to that. And I hope people. It's been a real treat because I'm so impressed with the questions that people send in and how thoughtful they are and how interested they are. And I know these chats get a lot of very positive feedback, which is very gratifying. So I'm just going to say this, that because a lot of people will probably ask about it, so I'm going to anticipate it anyway. We are in talks now of figuring out what Noir City festivals will look like in 2021. I can tell you that if they happen, they're going to probably happen online, at least for the first half of 2021. But there are real positive upsides to that. I miss the camaraderie and the actual getting to meet and people in person. But that's all I'm going to say. It's just I'm in a much more knowledgeable and optimistic place right now than we were the last time we talked in regards to the prospects for Noir City next year. I'll leave it at that.
Right, and then just one final note, if you are interested in sending in questions, if you subscribe to our newsletter, which you can do at noircity.com, filmnoirfoundation.org, then just sign up on our email list every month. We solicit questions from everybody. So, and because I've had a lot of people ask, how do I get my question answered? So that's how.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, terrific. And we'll see you next time then.
We will see you next time. Have a good night, and we'll see everybody next month.
Okay, take care. Thanks.
You too.